Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Monday night Facebook Live. My name is Laura Betts. I am Facility Director here at Hyperbaric RX. And this is part 4 of 4 in our Thankfulness series. Tonight's Facebook Live topic, we're specifically talking about oxygen, stem cells, and apoptosis. So, over the last month, I have specifically focused on aspects of our body, functions of our body that we really don't think about until they're not working. We don't appreciate until we're not feeling well. And wellness is subtle. It's a very calm, peaceful state of well-being. It's not particularly high and it's not particularly low. We tend to notice things only when they're out of balance. And if you haven't checked out the videos that I have done, this is again part 4 of 4 in our thankfulness series. And we focused on some different aspects and functions of our body and how to heal and rebalance them naturally. We do Facebook Lives every Monday at 6 p.m. So please like our page so you get notified when we go live. And of course, check out our past videos. This is also an opportunity for you to ask our oxygen experts and natural health practitioners questions live in the chat. And if you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to reach out to our facility or send us a message with your questions. We love sharing information so that you can be more empowered with your health choices. So, interestingly enough, let me take a moment and introduce myself before I get into the topic. I'm all excited about the information. This is one of the neatest things about hyperbaric oxygen therapy with it. So, of course, let me just take a moment again to introduce myself. My name is Laura Betts, and I am founder and facility director of Hyperbaric RX. And we are actually located here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we do actually have many people that come to us as for destination therapy, where they're only here for a short period of time. We actually did a consult today with someone that is going to be doing an elective surgical procedure, and they're doing the elective surgical procedure in the beginning of next year. And they came out to meet with us and see the facility and get their dive plan established and protocol. So again, we're located down here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And in addition to being the founder and facility director of Hyperbaric RX, I do sit on a few medical boards. I am specifically vice president of substance abuse programming and protocol integration for the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation. The IHMF has done some amazing work, and we continue to try to grow the accessibility of the modality. I also am a longtime member on the diving and medical board for Andy International. I actually started out as a mixed gas diving instructor, and everything we know about modern hyperbaric medicine actually originated from treating diving injuries. Though I have never actually had a diving injury myself, I did actually have a personal health narrative with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And this is part of the reason why I founded this clinic. And what I didn't realize at the time is when I was a working diver, each time I went to work, I was helping my body and supporting my immune system in ways that I didn't fully understand. And again, we kind of take it for granted. We don't appreciate it until it is gone. Hyperbaric RX, by the way, we are an Andy certified hyperbaric facility. And the topic that I'm going to talk about tonight, when I talk about stem cells, this is one of the perfect examples of why you really want to go to an Andy certified hyperbaric facility, and why diving with an Andy certified hyperbaric facility is different. In my discussion tonight, I'm going to talk about stem cells and how they're actually mobilized by hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I'm going to share with you 2 pieces of information on some pivotal studies and how that actually affected treatment protocol, and one of the reasons why Andy hyperbaric facilities are using the most current research as opposed to the original study. So interesting data there, and again, really exciting on it. And we, by the way, in addition to being an ANDI certified hyperbaric facility, we're also an ANDI training and research site. So we have chamber operators come from all over the world to actually do their hands-on and their practical, to actually get an opportunity to work in a clinic real time. Those of you that are leadership level or actually working in the hyperbaric industry or planning on working in the hyperbaric industry, I will have intern programs. They are starting again next year, and the hands-on and the Emerald Heart series are starting again next year. So we look forward to seeing you in our training programs and taking hyperbaric back with you to your sites and sharing so much of what we do here. Again, we are located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right on Commercial Boulevard. We're very convenient to get to. We have a freestanding hyperbaric facility with monoplace hyperbaric chambers. In addition to that, we also do natural health here. We do detox foot baths as well as a couple of other neat services. And again, making that point that we are an ANDI certified hyperbaric facility with certified chamber operators on staff. So we look forward at seeing you out soon. So let's go ahead and get into our topic tonight. And again, this has been a really great month, and I hope you took advantage of some of the promotions that we're having. I'll talk a little bit more about them as we wrap up our November Thankfulness series. So hyperbaric oxygen stem cells and apoptosis. So those are some fancy words, but believe it or not, apoptosis is something that's happening in our body all the time. And it really is fascinating. The human body is a regenerative organism. Our body is constantly making new cells and cleaning up old cells. And that's specifically what apoptosis is. Every cell in our body has a programmed lifespan. And interestingly enough, some cells have a much quicker apoptosis cycle than others. So you might have noticed that when we burn the inside of our mouth, that it seems to heal a little bit faster than when maybe we burned our arm or our wrist on the oven, maybe taking something out of the oven. And that is true. The inside lining of the mouth has a much faster apoptosis cycle than the dermis area here. It's really quite interesting. And the inside lining of our mouth actually regenerates very quickly, about every 3 days. That's actually regenerating. Now, other tissues in our body regenerate much more slowly. Nerves are a very good example of that. Bone is a very good example of that. Bone is the tissue with the least blood supply, and interestingly enough, it also has the slowest apoptosis cycle. And there is something to be said for that. There is a correlation there. Now, in order for our body to make new cells, that process is called angiogenesis. And again, the body is constantly in this cycle. It's part of our normal function. And it says this cell is going to live for a period of time, and then the cell is going to die, and we're going to go ahead and make a new cell. Now, the process of making that new cell, angiogenesis, is almost completely oxygen dependent. Now, oxygen is the primary component there. It's not the only component, but unlike where if we had a deficiency if we had a deficiency, we could still get apoptosis. We could still get angiogenesis. Not quite the same if the oxygen is missing. If the oxygen isn't there, it affects the cells, it affects the mitochondria, the process of generating something called ATP, that stands for adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is the gas in our cell car, and it requires an incredible amount of molecular oxygen in order for the organelles within the cells, the mitochondria, the engines, to actually get enough fuel. So really neat process there. So what we know about hyperbaric oxygen therapy is not only is it able to restore oxygen to an area that has an insufficiency. Fancy term for that is called ischemia. So when we're talking about wounds that aren't healing, one of the reasons why those wounds aren't healing is because the area is not getting enough blood supply, it's not getting enough oxygen. But to add to that, there's some, very often those wounds are very poorly profused tissues to begin with, meaning they don't actually get a lot of blood supply in the first place. So they're very, very sensitive to lack of oxygen. And nerves are a very good example of that. Nerves, compared to, for example, muscle tissue, they actually have a significantly less blood supply. And this is one of the reasons why neurological repair, for example, takes much, much longer than muscle repair. And one of the things that we know with hyperbaric oxygen therapy is that it actually upregulates angiogenesis. It makes it happen faster. This chemical reaction, this process, this series of events that allow for the creation of osteoblasts, bone, and fibroblasts, tissue. This process here is really quite fascinating because it doesn't happen without oxygen. And when you give it enough oxygen, it actually happens better. It upregulates the process. In general, we heal about 80% faster. The tissue regeneration process is about 80% faster for soft tissue and about 50% faster for bone. So Laura, say that in English. Are you telling me that if I had an injury that was like I broke a bone and they were saying it's going to take 8 months for it to heal, are you telling me that if I was doing a proper course of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it would heal in about half the time? Yes. That's what we see. And that's one of the reasons why these injuries, these wounds, these infections, these limbs that have been crushed, one of the concerns that something that's not able to be healed, well, with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it is able to be healed. Crush injury is a common application in emergency hyperbaric medicine where something's fallen on the limb. And even though it's crushed the vascular system, hyperbaric is able to be used as an emergency intervention to save the tissue. And outside of an emergency intervention, for example, like a chronic wound, one of the things that hyperbaric does is it actually reoxygenates the tissues. And part of what that process engages is the mobilization of stem cells. Now, a stem cell, it's pretty neat. It can basically become just about many different types of cells in the body. So it's kind of like a blank. And the stem cell moves into the area where there's injury and actually becomes the type of cell that it needs to. And of course, when we are growing and we have slightly different embryonic stem cells, these stem cells are pretty incredible because they're actually able to grow a whole person, including all of the different types of stem cells that it needs to be. So everything in the body, and there's about 200 different types of cells, all of that comes from the core embryonic stem cell. Now, when we get older, little different, our body isn't quite as regenerative, but it is actually able to mobilize stem cells to the area. And then these cells are able to become the other types of cells as part of the healing process. Now, this is pretty neat. And essentially, they go to the area and they're part of our healing mechanism. They're part of how our body repairs the area. But check this out. In 2000, they published a study. Now, we know that hyperbaric oxygen therapy had been mobilizing stem cells. It was seen in wound care. It was seen in soft tissue radionecrosis, refractory osteomyelitis, these very, very serious interstitial cystitis. These are very serious injuries. Somebody that is moving through this injury, they're not they're not in an ideal state. They certainly don't have homeostasis. So the hyperbaric here is even more powerful because in these applications, it is actually life-sustaining and life-giving. So that's a pretty neat thing about emergency hyperbaric medicine, and it is totally underutilized. And that's a shame, but I hope as I share some information, it sparks some interest, and maybe I'll do another topic on some of the other points there. So getting back on point here. So the study basically demonstrates, and they took a group of people that were undergoing hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And again, we've seen wounds being healed. This study was done in 2000. So we already had 40, 50 years of hyperbaric medicine. Experimental Diving Unit was doing research in the 40s on oxygen limits, 1940s. So this is really relatively common information at this point. So this was a study that was done by University of Pennsylvania. It is one of the gold standard studies in hyperbaric medicine. And essentially what it demonstrated is that hyperbaric oxygen therapy mobilizes existing stem cells 800%. What? Yeah, I'm going to say that again. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy mobilizes existing stem cells 800%. And it's clinically documented to do that. So that was a really insightful study because we were aware of its healing mechanisms. We know when the body is injured, the stem cells are called to the area to initiate the healing and reparative process, but it wasn't fully understood why. So this was a really neat piece of information, and it's an amazing study. And for those of you that are actually interested in the study, or those of you that'll be taking one of the chamber operator courses, I have it. I'm happy to send it to you. It's really, really neat. You can probably find it on the internet. It's pretty common. Okay, so then skip ahead. So that was really interesting, and like, wow, all right, hyperbaric oxygen therapy mobilizes stem cells 800%. So that's definitely a valuable piece of information and why it does such a good job at enhancing angiogenesis. And that's not the only thing that it does. In an earlier video, I talk about the 6 big things that hyperbaric oxygen therapy does. And the process of angiogenesis is complemented by the fact that hyperbaric oxygen therapy also brings down inflammation. When an area of the body is injured, the body initiates this inflammatory cycle. And while the inflammatory cycle is trying to mobilize resources to the area, the pay to play for that is it actually inhibits oxygen supply to the area as a consequence of the swelling, a consequence of the edema. So being able to bring down the inflammation and paradoxically increase circulation is a pretty profound thing. And remember, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is non-invasive. It does all of this by using Henry's law of solubility. We're dissolving a gas into a liquid. In this case, the gas is oxygen, and the liquid is everything in our body except for very, very dense bone. Even surface bone has enhanced angiogenesis from the hyperbaric mechanisms. It does reach there. So very interesting. So this is pretty profound. And our body is constantly in this regenerative process. But sometimes the apoptosis cycle, the cells become misprogrammed. And we're not getting the right kind of angiogenesis, or we're getting negative angiogenesis. So this is where some of the hyperbaric mechanisms are able to essentially help with the programming, help reset the signals to the cells. It's really kind of fascinating how it does this. Now, I mentioned earlier in the introduction that I was going to make a point about why you wanted to come to an ANDI certified hyperbaric facility. And this is another really neat reason. So the study that was done in 2000 was done at an actual dosage of oxygen of 2.0. And that's dosage, by the way. That's ATA of oxygen. Partial pressure of oxygen for the ANDI people that are listening or that are watching this on the replay. That's PO2 at bibs. So 2.0 ATA, PO2 at bibs. So, okay. that's the dosage. And one of the reasons why you want an ANDI-certified chamber operator and ANDI-certified hyperbaric facility is because they are trained to be able to duplicate the dosage with the exact equipment that they are certified for. So I'm using an example of something now that's really dosage dependent. So watch this. So in 2014, there was a follow-up study to this. Yes, 14 years later. The hyperbaric medicine, hyperbaric industry, we could really use some more research. If anybody's listening to right now and has a few $1 million that they'd like to donate to some research, we'd love to have it at the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation. We're really trying to make a difference in the world. Anyway, I digress. So they published a study in 2014. And basically they said, all right, so we know that this happens. We know that the trigger is this chemical reaction. We know that this chemical reaction in the body increases and decreases with dosage of oxygen. So the question is there a better dosage for mobilizing stem cells than another? And if the discussion is just stem cell mobilization, yes, there is a very specific dosage. And the information wasn't surprising, but it was very specific. And that's important. So let's say you're doing an elective stem cell procedure. And again, I have people that are listening from all over the world and in different countries. Stem cell procedures are available at different levels in different requirements. So now I'm discussing an international indication. This may not be approved in your country. Anyway, moving forward. So with stem cell mobilization, sometimes they are using external stem cells and they're being implanted where the stem cells came from a donor. In other applications, we're using the person's own stem cells. And those stem cells can come from adipose tissue, fat. In some cases, they'll actually harvest into the bone marrow and take out a piece and chisel into a large area of bone to take out a piece of bone marrow. And the idea is that there's all these stem cells there. And now the stem cells can be concentrated into a serum, and then they are prepared and cocktails made, and they are re-administered. And the whole point of this is to create an opportunity for the body to heal and repair in a way that's compromised. It's to create an opportunity to fix something. It's to create an opportunity to repair a serious injury. So wouldn't we want to do that about 800% better? So hyperbaric oxygen therapy and engages regenerative mechanisms. Stem cells are a form of regenerative therapy. When you combine them together, it's profound. I'll tell you an anecdote about one of our referring physicians. The person did preconditioning. Now, the idea here is if we're going to be harvesting stem cells from our own body, then we want to increase the amount of stem cells in the harvest site, whether it's PRP is platelet-rich plasma with it, and we're actually trying to increase the level of stem cells in the plasma to actually generate a serum. If we're looking to specifically to harvest it from fatty tissue, again, there's little nuances here depending on your country and the individual procedure that's going on. And this isn't a discussion about which one of those is better. This is about how hyperbaric enhances the procedure significantly. So one of our referring physicians, this particular person did the preconditioning. They did the hyperbaric, the anti-hyperbaric protocol. They did the preconditioning, and the doctor calls us on the phone and says, I just need to check that everything's okay. And to be honest, when a doctor calls and asks us questions, we're thinking, all right, I hope everything's all right. And I should know better than to think negative, because he says, no, no, everything's very good. And we go, oh, that's great. Yeah, I've been doing these procedures for quite some time. I've never seen this many stem cells in serum before. And this person is a 62-year-old woman. So this is the most I've ever seen, ever. And I joke, youth is wasted on the young. As we get older, our normal level of stem cells actually drop. So once we're over the age of 55, that number is significantly less. So the doctor was expecting a lower number to begin with. And not only was it a significantly higher number, it was the highest number that they've seen. Now, again, not magic. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy increases stem cell mobilization by about 800%. So when someone does the Andy preconditioning protocol, and hopefully followed up by the post-implantation protocol, yeah, there's going to be a lot more stem cells in the serum. And if the whole point of this is to have as many stem cells as possible, this is an area where these are very complementary. And I hope that gives a little insight as to why many of the stem cell doctors are absolutely emphatic that the person does hyperbaric oxygen therapy before the extraction, especially if we're dealing with somebody that's older, somebody over the age of 50. Now, interestingly enough, we had just shifted to the new protocol, and this is going back a little ways now. So in 2000, they did the study confirming what was happening. And then in 2014, they did a follow-up study where they actually confirmed what the ideal dosage was to do this. So the Andy hyperbaric facilities, the Andy facility protocol, the medical board modified it in 2015. Now, this is an elective procedure. I'm not aware of stem cells being covered in most countries. And if we're paying out of pocket for something, don't we want to create the absolute best efficacy we could? So again, this is another example of where, because the anti-hyperbaric facilities had more information, had the most current information, they actually were applying the protocol, albeit an elective protocol, a research protocol, but the number demonstrated to be very, very effective. And as a research site, I can tell you behind the scenes in this that very often the targets are solid and creating the best opportunity for efficacy. And that's kind of the whole point of this. So pretty neat there. And again, in normal scenarios, when you have research published, it's 10, 15, 20 years before it makes it into practice. The anti-hyperbaric facilities that are using the anti-protocol list just have so much more information. And as a medical board, because many of our people on the medical board are actually active researchers, we work in clinics, our data is just so much closer and we're much more real time. On top of that, we have chamber operators that can actually duplicate dosage. In a lot of cases, this dosage discussion doesn't come up because there isn't enough information. Ignorance and malice, unfortunately, have the same result to the person that was counting on the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So whatever the reason is, very often chamber operators are untrained and uncertified. Now, the good news is part of the reason why that's the case is because it's really hard to hurt somebody with a hyperbaric chamber, and regulation is reactive. But the bad side of that is that, are they creating the best opportunity for efficacy? And using the example that I just gave, there was a big difference in target pressure between the protocols that we were using prior to 2014 and the protocols that we were using after 2015. Big, big difference. And when somebody is coming to a facility specifically for a stem cell adjuvant where they're using the hyperbaric in combination with an elective procedure with the goal of having as much stem cells as possible in the extraction, so to create the best opportunity and to have as many stem cells as possible later for reimplantation. So it's pretty amazing there. And the fact that our body is able to do this and that our body is doing this all the time, it's really incredible. And how oxygen at the proper target dosages is actually able to reset and repair programming. It just, my oxygen nerd is showing. I can go on and on and on. So, and again, this is happening in our body all the time. It's one of the things that we very, very much take for granted. So I hope you enjoyed our November Thankfulness series. Please go back and check out the other videos. There's a lot of incredible information there. Again, if you have questions, I encourage you to reach out to us. Ask our natural health practitioners questions real time in the chat. We do Facebook Lives every Monday at 6 o'clock. And of course, the videos are there for you to watch on the replay. Again, my name is Laura Betts, Hyperbaric RX, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Facebook Live. If you know somebody that is struggling with symptoms, if you know somebody that's not healing, if you know somebody that's been said, there's nothing we can do, give us a call. The body has some incredible natural healing mechanisms, and we get to see, quote, miracles here every day. And the body's ability to heal and repair when it has what it needs is awesome. And we'd love to help you. So please give us a call, schedule a consultation. Our number is 954-749-9998. Again, my name is Laura Betts. I'm Facility Director at Hyperbaric RX, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week. See you next week, everyone. Thank you.